Hello, this is Theisan from MMA Collector. Every week I will bring in a new piece of memorabilia for my personal collection and even bring in a few collector friends with some of theirs. Our goal is to raise awareness of MMA memorabilia collecting and discuss the historical people and fights that made this sport what it is today. Join me now while we take a stroll down memorabilia lane. On this episode of MMA Collector, we look at a unique item belonging to the man they call the last emperor, Fedor Emelianenko. Fedor started his career with Japan's Rings organization in 2000 after competing in Sambo as an amateur in his native Russia. Today we're going to show a nice little item that was owned by Fedor Emelianenko. This is his warm-up suit that he used quite often. He used it for training, warming up. It was known to be his favorite suit at the time. You know, this was purchased right around 2011, so he would have used this prior to that. It's a Russian-made suit, and this is kind of really cool. He signed it, dated it. He actually dated it on the day that he was fighting Dan Henderson in Strikeforce in Chicago, Illinois on July 30th, 2011. By 2002, he had moved to Pride, fighting's biggest stage. From 2001 to 2009, he remained undefeated, beating the likes of Nagara, Mirko Krokop, Mark Coleman, and Kevin Randleman, just to name a few. Though always reserved in his demeanor, Fedor spent almost a decade at the top of the MMA game. We got the pants as well.
Worn by the emperor, the last emperor. He signed both,
For sure. He did sign both. And, at the time, Miguel, this was a very rare item to find. Fedor's fight worn, or pretty much anything worn, T-shirts, anything worn by him, were not found in the United States or for sale. The only item that I could find that had been for sale prior to this was a pair of his gloves that he used in his Matt Lindland fight in Bodog in Russia. And he donated those gloves to an auction for charity, and they sold for 110,000 American dollars. So, at the time in 2011, this suit came up for sale on MMA Collector. The person that personally purchased it from Fedor had sent it to MMA Collector to sell, through their website. So in 2023, Fedor fought his retirement fight in the USA for Bellator, putting an end to a 23-year career that leaves him firmly in the GOAT conversation. I probably am about the third owner of this in the States, and hopefully the last, because I don't know if this will ever leave my collection. I'm a big Fedor fan.
For sure. That's a keeper. And you're not wrong about the lack of memorabilia for Fedor, especially when you consider, the 110,000 US dollars. If it was in Bodog and that match was in Moscow, then very possibly it was auctioned in Moscow. And it doesn't surprise me that you could get big money, for a one-time thing like that. Fedor at that point had not fought in Russia in ages. And, it was something that over there could be a big money client. So, on top of that, he also had a big-time manager who would probably ask him for his gloves and stuff like that and keep that for himself,
Sure.
So, yeah, it keeps things scarce with a guy that big, who's got a lot of people watching over him. So definitely this is a one-of-a-kind catch.
Yes, it is. One thing, charity auctions will sometimes bring out a little more than what the actual value is, but I think with a name like Fedor and his memorabilia, it probably really didn't make a difference. So I don't know what this would have sold for in an auction of that nature, but it's definitely a valuable item.
For sure. A museum piece, you're talking about a GOAT candidate. So, when he was strutting around, I think he took a loss to Henderson, but, his 8 to 10 year run in Japan is unmatchable.
Yes.
And so is this item.
Yeah, for sure.
So, is Fedor the GOAT? He's the only guy that normally makes the list who never fought in the UFC, and that is held against him. However, having performed at Pride for the better part of a decade is all the credentials anybody should really need. He has 10 wins over UFC and Pride champions. That list includes Kevin Randleman, Tim Sylvia, Andrei Arlovsky, Frank Mir, Quentin Jackson, Mirko Korkop, Antonio Nogueira twice, and Mark Coleman twice. He owns other notable victories over wrestlers Matt Lindland and Chael Sonnen, and kickboxers Pedro Rizzo and Mark Hunt. He also has an MMA win over the man most considered the greatest kickboxer of all time, Semi Schilt. This doesn't even take into account fights where he fought a man 100 pounds bigger or a foot and a half taller. Known for his quiet demeanor, at times, Fedor seemed to lull his opponents into his game before exploding. He spent nearly a decade undefeated at the top of the game, so the next time someone says Fedor does not belong in the GOAT discussion, just tell them they're wrong.
Join us next episode, where we go back to the early days of SEG and look at a tournament medal earned by a Lions Den member.
If you enjoyed our video, take a moment to like and share, and subscribe to the MMA Collector on YouTube and join our collector community.